Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Welcome back to Soul Archaeology. And happy Monday. Or happy whatever day you are listening to this. We have a pretty big turning point week. I'm really curious to hear how you have been experiencing Jupiter in Cancer, Venus in Taurus. Focus on the home, focus on the body, focus on belonging, safety, nourishment. This in so many ways feels like this homecoming. And with Jupiter landing in Cancer, I know I did a whole episode about that. So if you'd like to learn more, I highly recommend going back to that episode, especially because we'll be talking a lot about Jupiter again today. And it's square with Saturn that is finally completing this week. We've also had some volatility with Mars and Uranus, which are two hothead planets. So in so many ways, last week was the week of Jupiter. It was big, it was expansive, it was revealing. We had the full moon in Sagittarius. We had all of this illuminating where we might feel trapped or stuck, where we're afraid to expand. We're getting pressure to work with those pieces and parts of us, where we're playing small, where we're perhaps afraid of moving beyond what we've believed, what we know to be true, or where we are escaping, running from reality. So I'm just jumping straight into it. This has been a week. We've had some really intense escalation here in Los Angeles. I live in Topanga Canyon, which is outside of LA, still in LA County, but we are in the mountains, and in so many ways it feels pretty far away from downtown LA, and I don't go into LA proper often. I'm just not a city person, but this city has been stretched this year. It is a city of angels. It holds so much light, which also attracts a lot of density and a lot of trauma and a lot of underground material that if you live in LA, you can probably feel, or if you are able to tune into that energy, you probably can sense into. But it's a place of contrast, of extremes, of incredible beauty and also incredible darkness. And when there are these extreme experiences, when there's tension, it gets escalated so much. We, of course, had the wildfires and basically stretching all across Los Angeles County. And now we're in the throes of this incredible tension around immigration and this theme around belonging, protection, family, home, safety is what Jupiter is revealing to us right now. And as we've been building up to this Jupiter-Saturn square, we've been working with this energy since August of 2024. And these two are squaring off again, exact on June 15th. It's showing us where we have boundaries, limitations, where there's authority or abuse of authority, where we quite literally draw the line. That's very Saturnian, and Jupiter wants to move beyond it. It wants us to find our sense of oneness, our sense of compassion and empathy. We watch what unfolds across the globe. Children being killed, families being torn apart, unrest, around boundaries, lines, borders. This is so Saturnian. And with Saturn entering Aries, this is going to continue to heat up. This is what we're examining. This is what we're looking at. What does it mean to belong? What do we belong to? Where do we draw that line? Where is our shell? This week is in many ways a threshold. It's a reckoning and a return at the same time. We start this week hot. It's heated. It's pressurized. I woke up on Sunday feeling just uncomfortable, sort of agitated, not in a way that felt out of my control, but sort of this like soul level agitation and frustration with humans, with our race, with our species, and in the ways that we completely self-sabotage. And our desire to find safety in the poles and the extremes, in the ideologies, in the fixed boxes. And so I had to sit with that agitation. I had to sit with my own value systems, to sit with my actions and my choices. This very Saturnian space of discipline around what I'm choosing, how I'm structuring my life, my values, Venus and Taurus, Jupiter and Cancer. Am I living in alignment with them? And in many ways, it was confronting, as this time has been. And it's almost overwhelming when you start going into the layers. Saying that I care so deeply about humanity, about this planet, about all living beings and things. I still use my iPhone, which we know now requires slave labor to harvest the cobalt that's required to power lithium-ion batteries, the working conditions in these places where cobalt is harvested, the child labor, the essential slavery. And that's not just the iPhone, that's all of the devices that require lithium, the ways in which we utilize AI to ask silly, simple questions, things that we could be finding out on our own, and the environmental impact of AI, the data centers, the amount of water it takes to cool those data centers. It's incredibly astonishing. It's incredibly confronting. I don't have the answers. And I think in a lot of ways, this is what we're seeing with the Saturn-Jupiter square, the Saturn-Neptune square at the end of the week, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at the 0 point of Aries early next year. We're going to have to really start confronting the ways in which we choose to live. Our obsession with the new shiny object, the new technology, the new product, consumerism, and our obsession with the next best thing, the clothing trends, the shoe trends, and the cognitive dissonance that comes with living every day so disconnected from the earth, forgetting the impact of each and everything we buy. And in so many ways, I think this time is forcing us, when we really zoom out, it's forcing us as humans to begin to reckon with the ways in which we are growing and evolving. And where we begin to really transform is when we tend to our own inner world, our own family, the way we live, our imprint, so that it creates no harm, so that that frequency can ripple out and affect those around us, our family, our friends, our neighbors, our community members. These are all things that have been weighing on my heart for a long time, but really kind of came to a head with this Mars and Uranus square and Jupiter and Saturn square, and just this feeling of trying so hard to live in alignment with my values and realizing it can be difficult in these times. It can be expensive in these times, and that our systems really are not built to support sustainable, respectful ways of living. So this is the journey of Pluto and Aquarius. It's where we take our power back as people, where we decide how we want to actually live and start living that way, disconnecting from the systems that require us to be enslaved and dependent and fearful, obedient, small, and instead creating new pathways, new ways of living, new ways of being, new ways of teaching our children, new ways of connecting with community. I do believe we have the power to do this, but it always starts within. It starts with our own actions. So that's just a little snippet of what's been on my heart and what's coming up for me personally during this activating transit, and how we can alchemize these feelings and emotions into action. Sacred activism lives truly and authentically within the heart, comes from aligned action. It comes from a space of truth and authenticity. It doesn't come from showmanship. It doesn't come from virtue signaling. It comes straight from the heart. It comes from what we choose to interact with, to buy, to purchase, to consume daily. It comes from how we treat those around us. And it comes from our own sense of self-respect, self-awareness, and boundaries. I always say that a strong, straight spine and an open heart can serve in profound ways. And that's what we're beginning to examine with Jupiter and Cancer. How do we live and move and breathe and act and engage from the heart? So on the 15th, we have both Mars squaring Uranus and Jupiter squaring Saturn. So Mars in Leo squaring Uranus in Taurus. Uranus is getting ready to shift into Gemini next month. Jupiter at 1 degree of Cancer is squaring Saturn exact at 1 degree of Aries. This is a third in a series that began in August of 2024, and we're revisiting themes from December of 2020 when we had the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius. Jupiter square Saturn is cardinal. It's friction. It's catalytic. Mars and Uranus in fixed signs are pushing us to act, to change something, to move out of where we're fixed. Both of these transits push, provoke, are telling us that something must shift in how you act and what you believe and what you tolerate and what choices you make. And then on the 17th, we have Mars entering Virgo, which can be grounding and clarifying. On the 18th, Jupiter squares Neptune. As we know, Neptune has been at the first few degrees of Aries since March. And on the 20th, we have the Sun entering Cancer, and then shortly after on the 21st, we have the Summer Solstice. So this week is a little pushy, but it's also clarifying. It's giving us insight into what really actually needs to shift, what needs to move within us, what needs to be revealed. This week, Mars finally moves out of Leo. We have been in this Cancer-Leo space with Mars since October. And although we've been out of the shadow since early May, the shift of Mars out of Leo is going to be significant. It's going to bring clarity. It's going to bring action. It's going to give us space to actually launch, create, discern, and move in the way we really need to. This Mars and Uranus square, right before Mars shifts into Virgo 2 days later, is all about the ego. It's about where we're fixed. The square is electric, agitating, catalytic. It's volatile, and it doesn't have to be necessarily negative or destructive, but it is demanding something. Mars in Leo really wants to act. Mars in a fire sign likes movement. It likes change. Mars in Leo wants to act from passion and pride, courage. Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018, and it's been shaking the ground beneath what we thought was stable. Our values, resources, our money systems, our belief systems. So when they clash, when they square off, we're having sudden urges, desires to make fast, quick changes. Something wants to erupt, something wants to move, something wants to be relieved through action. There might be a desire to break free from anything that feels confining or fixed. You might feel a deep instinct to leap, to change, to burn a bridge, to quit. Depending on where this lands in your chart, where you have Leo and Taurus. And our work is to temper that space. It's to titrate it. It's to be with our anger, be with our frustration, be with our limits, our thresholds, to be with that space, to notice the reactivity, notice the urges, notice the force, the life force. If there's a desire to destroy something, where is that coming from? Is there an inner alchemy that wants to occur? Is there something within you that wants to burn down? Are you wanting to separate from an old version of you? Are you wanting to reckon with a time along your timeline when you had no power, when you had no choice, when you felt trapped? I've been doing so much anger remediation with my clients over the last 6 months. Mars has been doing work within our psyche, within our nervous systems. It's been having us look at our relationship with power, control, anger. Where do we respond from as Mars prepares to shift out of Leo, as Uranus prepares to shift out of Taurus? It's going to ask us to revisit these spaces and places within us where we feel trapped, where we feel fixed, how we can allow inner alchemy to occur, to realize we aren't trapped. We have choice. We get to choose how we respond. And when we let things burn within us, we allow our bodies to move with it. When we meet these spaces within us with courage rather than projection outward, we get to move from the heart. It always connects us back to the heart, back to belonging, back to safety, back to healthy containment. Can you consciously choose to be with the anger, to be with the frustration, so that it doesn't burn down everything around you, but instead allows you to alchemize it into power, into choice, into healthy, aligned action and movement? Once again, we revisit with this are our daily actions, which are connected to Mars, aligned with this higher timeline, this higher version of self? Do we allow ourselves to go into that deep space of unprocessed anger and frustration in order to alchemize and transmute it into light, it into power, it into pure life force that can create rather than destroy what's around it? Are we going to allow oppression to destroy us? Or can we create with it? Can we create new systems, new ways of being? Instead of spending our energy trying to tear down and destroy the opponent, the opposite, the other, can we let our sacred rage lead to sacred embodiment, aligned action and choice? Can we allow it to help us build the new world? Like I said, these are confronting transits. I do not have it figured out. I've had to reckon with so much internally over the last few weeks, my beliefs, my values, my actions, my choices, how to live in alignment with them each and every day, given what I'm given, with the position I'm in. And I've always believed this and will probably continue to believe this in so many ways, but that always begins within. And I think that's what these transits are trying to show us, is if we're operating from an old playbook or old stories, old narratives, old anger points, if we let those stories run the show now, we become enslaved to them. We're simply repeating old narratives. This time is about rebellion of the heart, not rebellion for its own sake, but rebellion that's rooted in sovereignty, sensory intelligence, a deeper embodiment of truth? Can we act from that space rather than the wound? On the same day, we get hit with the Jupiter-Saturn square, and I've been talking about this because we've been building towards this. We've had 3 Jupiter-Saturn squares that began in August 2024, December 2024, and now June 15th, 2025. And this is a major turning point in the cycle that started with the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in December of 2020. This is the 3rd and final square in the series. And it's particularly potent because both planets have shifted into new signs. Jupiter now in its exalted placement of Cancer, and Saturn in pioneering Aries. The square really represents a major turning point. We're moving from this intellectual exploration that we experience with Jupiter and Gemini and the spiritual dissolution of Saturn in Pisces to something much more personal and emotionally charged. Jupiter in Cancer really amplifies our desire for emotional security, connection, a sense of belonging, safety, security. And Saturn in Aries is all about courage, action, assertion of our individual needs and our individual will. This is a reality check moment. There's tension here. What do we want versus how can we create it? What actions need to align for it to happen? Balancing our need for security with our desire for independence. Shifts around family and foundations, belonging, home. So you might be experiencing frustrations between your desires and actions, what you want versus what's possible right now. Saturn demarcates a limit or a boundary. Jupiter expands past it. Jupiter expands anything it touches. So it's revealing to us where we feel limited, where we feel stuck, where our own limiting beliefs are keeping us held within this space of avoidance, fear of change even, fear of intimacy, where our own limiting beliefs are keeping us separated from what we truly desire, the belonging, the love, the connection, the intimacy we crave. This can also amplify anger and frustration, maybe even overwhelm. It's going to show us where we're not taking action, aligned action, to build the life we desire. Jupiter and Saturn are always on a journey. They conjoin or they form a conjunction every 20 years. And every 5 years, they form a pressure aspect. A square, an opposition, another square, and then a conjunction. These 2 giant planets, the 2 biggest planets in the solar system, collided in December of 2020. This was the beginning of a new cycle. We're at the first checkpoint. We're at the end of the first checkpoint. And it's revealing to us where we still have work to do. This new cycle is trying to help us liberate ourselves, to liberate from our own internal blocks, where we hold illusion that we're stuck or trapped, and where we're able to truly liberate ourselves, truly empower ourselves to take action, to create change. This is the point of contraction and expansion. Saturn contracts. It likes to pull us into reality. It likes to have us look at what's actually happening. What are we choosing? And how does that shape and form our reality? It might not be fun, but it's an essential part of the process. It grounds us. It brings us back into reality. Saturn is lead. Jupiter is expansion. It's gold. So this is a checkpoint, and it's saying, what do you need moving forward to create this life of your dreams over the next 5 years until we have a Saturn-Jupiter opposition? On a collective scale, this is having us look at where we give our power away to institutions, to systems, to the things that we're addicted to, that keep us in these loops of suffering, of smallness, of limitation. We're really being tested around the seeds that we planted in December of 2020. Think back to that time. What were you working on? What were you feeling? That was a groundbreaking time. This is also tied to democracy, quite literally. It's tied to freedom. It's tied to agency. It's tied to autonomy, choice. And this final square in a series of 3 really brings it home. It brings it into the root system, into the body, into the inner child. This square can feel like a conversation between your longing for belonging, nourishment, and your call to evolve, to grow, to become. Jupiter wants to feel loved and nourished and cared for. Saturn in Aries is saying, no one is coming to save you. You have to become your own savior. You have to become the one you've been waiting for. When they clash, it's saying it's time to grow, but not too fast. It's time to act, but not on impulse. It's a time to trust your instincts, but move from a space of regulation and groundedness. This is a time to forge through friction. Let the pressure shape you. Let yourself pause in it a little bit and be with it. Deepen into the calling, the messaging, what you're longing for. Sitting with the impatience to have it, and let that reveal what the next right step is. I'd also like to note that when we're building towards pressure aspects, it's more intense. When we experience the exact moment of the pressure aspect, it's very intense. And then from there, we start to release it. We start to integrate it. So the other side, you can imagine it's like going up the hill is more intense, and then you reach the top, and then you start going downhill on the other side. So you're still in the energy, but you're integrating it. So the rest of this week, we're going to be integrating the pressure of these squares. On the 17th, Mars enters Virgo. So we're finally going to get some clarity. After the egoic fire of Mars and Leo, it's been asking us to look at where are we operating from the ego? Where are we trying to control and manipulate things in our favor? This shift feels almost like a cooling, a grounding. It can reveal that right next step, that right action I was talking about before. We're moving out of passion and desire and will into mental clarity. It's going to show us where we're wasting energy, responding from our emotions, where we're reacting, and how can we refine. Mars here is clear. It's where the sacred no lives. It's where the aligned yes lives. It's where we acknowledge and appreciate the small habits and choices that shape our reality over time. It brings us back to the basics, back to our daily habits, back to our rituals, back to our practices, back to the body, back to what we're consuming, so we can regroup, we can realign, we can refocus. Having Mars and Virgo, having Venus and Taurus is going to feel nice and grounding for the rest of this month. We actually get to see what's working and what isn't. We get to move out of the emotions, the anger, the frustration of these squares and into some practicality, some clarity. This can be clarifying and refining, incredibly helpful. But with the South Node in Virgo, it can also reveal our shadow. Self-criticism, perfectionism, control, or micromanaging other people or projects, depending on where this lands in your chart, where Virgo lands. You might notice what your patterns are around aligned action. This is an invitation to devote your precious energy towards what actually serves your well-being, and then in turn serves the well-being of those around you, the collective. This is about tending to your roots, tending to your masculine, tending to the structures that serve without rigidity, with flexibility, with presence, with actually attuning to the heart in the process. This is where we can actually use this fire, this passion, this rage, this anger, this frustration to shape and form and forge new beginnings, new ways, new ideas. We can cool off a bit to come back to what's real, what's right in front of us, what's tangible, what we can actually work with, rather than what's out of our control. And to remember that we all have a different blueprint for how this looks. We all move from a different place. We all react and respond and operate from a different blueprint. It cannot look the same because we are not the same, nor should we be. That's what makes this ecosystem, this fabric of humanity so rich and nutrient dense and complex. If we were all good at the same things, if we all believed the same things, how boring would this world be? That is a shadow of Pluto and Aquarius, is this desire to dilute diversity and homogenize all of our systems to fit one narrative, one belief, one system. And we reach sort of climax this week, the summer solstice on June 21st. And this is a moment of fullness, of completion. This is where we have a peak of light. But this solstice in particular has a little bit of a weight to it. There's almost a sense of responsibility that comes with this download of light. And we know light is consciousness. I've talked about this a lot in past episodes, but when we receive more light, when there's more light on the planet, the northern hemisphere is at the peak of light this week. This is the most light we'll experience for the rest of the year. After the 21st, we begin to descend. So we begin to turn inward a little bit more. We begin to go deeper. We prepare for fall. We prepare for the underworld. Very, very slowly. We still have a lot of summer left, but surely. This is an opportunity to remember, to root deeper, to return to the hearth, the heart. It's also the beginning of Cancer season, and Cancer is the keeper of lineage and nourishment. But it's not about comfort. It's about belonging. It's about remembering where you come from. It's about choosing what you interact with, what you bring forward from the ancestral line, and what you choose to release. The seasons are a spiral. From the winter solstice, we're contracted, we're pulled inwards, and as we travel outwards, we expand. We reach full expansion at the summer solstice, and then we begin the contraction process, slowly but surely. So the solstice is deeply illuminating. It's bringing light and consciousness, awareness, insight. And this next Cancer season, which I'll talk more about in the next episode, is going to be an initiation back to our home, our center, back to self, back to our roots, back to true belonging. So this week is not linear. It holds pressure and contraction and contrast and confrontation. And it holds expansion and clarity, realignment and groundedness. Allow yourself to be with what is. Allow yourself to flow with the waves. To notice when you feel really good, when you feel really connected, when you feel like you're in that space of belonging within, without. And when you might feel uncomfortable, can you let it all be okay? All be welcome. The card I pulled for today, for our Soul Archaeology community, is the Root card in the Untamed Elemental deck. And it's all about stabilization. It says Root is the starting point. He is a vast, unseen network of life that draws energy from the earth and creates a stable platform for life to grow and thrive. He offers a constant source of sustenance, connection, and communication. Root delves and twists, sharing insight with his neighboring kin and creating a strong community. As the most ancient and reliable anchor of planetary support, he guides us to grow stronger and more stable. Root asks you to establish firm foundations and develop a relationship with your own network of stabilization. He is the connecting force that carries all answers. So take stock. Are you receiving the right nourishment? Are your relationships loving and supportive? Are you drinking enough water, getting enough movement and sleep, breathing deeply? These pleasurable and achievable practices should be your starting point. An imbalance in one of them will translate to depletion in other areas of your life. Nurture your roots and watch your life blossom in miraculous ways. When it's balanced, you feel flourishing, productive, effective. When it's imbalanced, you feel depleted, inefficient, stunted, scattered. To bring into balance, explore nature in new ways while listening to your subtle body initiate self-inquiry and all that arises for you. And I just want to take a moment to pause and pray for all beings across this planet who are being separated from safety, security, belonging, who are separated from their families, from their roots, who are having to find new places to live. Praying for all who feel displaced, afraid. May we, as humans who have roots, who have access to our roots, who have access to safety, who have access to belonging, may we hold our own place and allow our network of roots to strengthen theirs. And may we all remember that we belong to one another, to this planet. We belong to the animals, the trees, the plants, the waters, the air, the fire. Let us remember this within ourselves for those who cannot remember within themselves right now. May we, who have access to safety, shelter, home, belonging, food, nourishment, love and support, anchor the light for those who do not. May we take the time to use our resources and tools for good, to create healing, not more wounding, not more destruction on this planet. And that begins within. Thank you, as always, for being here. I know this is maybe a little bit of a heavier episode, but man, we are in the times and we're at a reckoning point in so many ways. So I always try to kind of convey that in a way that's coming from the heart and also true and honest for where I am personally in my own journey, and that I don't have it all figured out. And I don't know if anyone does. So we can do our best. We can work with what we have. We can continue to tend to our own soil, our own families, our own units, our own inner landscape so that it creates more healing rather than wounding. I'm sending you all so much love. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for always sharing these episodes, sharing your heart, sharing your experience with me. This web of this community is just so powerful. I know we don't necessarily have a way to communicate to one another, but I know that that's part of what I'm trying to build and what I'm ready to build later this year. So I'm just thanking you for being a part of it, for being a part of this fabric, and for just being. Have a beautiful week.